The water heater clicks on at 2:47 a.m. You hear it through the wall. $3,412. That's checking after Friday's payment cleared. You do the math again. Same math as last month. Mortgage, car, the orthodontist bill. You're still splitting into 4. Down the street, a light's off in a house just like yours. Same year built, same square footage. That family stopped doing this math 11 years ago. Nothing happened to them today. Everything happened the day it ended. Paycheck hits Friday, $4,100 after taxes. You already know where $1,800 goes before it even lands. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, bundled into one number that leaves on the second business day like it stopped needing your permission a while ago. $600 to the car. Both of you drive, because nothing in this zip code is walkable. Not the school, not the grocery store. $210 for car insurance. $340 for groceries, that were $280 2 years back. Nobody explains that. You just noticed. What's left is $400 and some dollars. Gas, the dog's vet bill, your kid's cleats, whatever breaks. Something always breaks. You don't have a boat. You've never been to Portugal. Your check engine light's been on since spring, and you've decided it's probably fine because the mechanic said it's probably fine, and you didn't ask twice because asking twice costs money you don't have sitting around. Here's the part nobody tells you about year 3. It's not the math that gets you. You're good at math. You can do it standing in the cereal aisle. What gets you is the question running under every other question in your life. Can we still cover the mortgage if I take that job? Can we still cover the mortgage if I say no to this shift? Can we still cover the mortgage if I take 2 weeks for my mom? You don't say it out loud. You don't have to. It already answered itself before you finish thinking it, because the number's the number, and it doesn't care that you had a hard week. Your neighbor mentioned once that he's 3 years ahead on a refi from back when rates were lower. You didn't ask follow-ups. You changed it to weather, the way you do when a number might make you feel something in your own driveway. Nobody told you you're behind. But you run the same 15 minutes most Sunday nights, and you've started wondering if this is just what the next 27 years sound like. A bill, a payment, a question you can't ask anyone, including the guy who signed at 29 and felt, for about an hour in that office, like an adult who'd finally arrived somewhere. Here's a fact nobody mentions at closing. On a 30-year loan, almost 3/4 of an early payment is interest. You're not paying down a house in year 3. You're mostly paying down the bank's risk. That's not in the paperwork. It's not written anywhere, really. It's just sitting in the math, waiting for you to notice. Not gradually. No warning rattle first. It just stops on a Tuesday night, and by Wednesday the house is 58 degrees, and the guy on the phone says compressor, like it's nothing. It's nothing. $4,100 out of nowhere, out of an account that was already doing its one job, which is to sit at almost zero until next payday. You don't have $4,100 lying around. Nobody does at this level, so it goes on a card. 22%, you'll pay it off in 3 months, you tell yourself. Takes 9. Here's what year 8 actually teaches you, not the HVAC. The HVAC's just what makes you finally see it. It teaches you how thin the floor is under a life that looks completely fine from the street. The same week, your manager mentions a new role. Different department. Better work, almost meaningful, the kind you used to picture doing before you had a mortgage to picture around it. $600 a month less, though. You say you'll think about it. You already know. You knew before he finished the sentence. 600 isn't 600 when the mortgage already eats 43% of what comes in. It's the line between fine and not fine, between sleeping and not. So you say no. Nobody makes you. You just stop imagining it. The way you've stopped imagining a bunch of things these 8 years. The business idea, the 4 months off, the year you two talked about living somewhere slower. This part doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. The mortgage doesn't just take money. It takes options, one at a time, never out loud. It just waits for you to do the math yourself. And you do. Every time. You're very good at this kind of math by now. Your neighbor, same one, 3 years ahead, mentions he just threw an extra $2,000 at his principal. Just because. Says it like he's mentioning a haircut. You go home and pull up your own statement, the first time maybe in a year, not looking for anything, just looking. 22 years left. You stare at it longer than you mean to, and somewhere in there, something small shifts. Not the debt. Not yet. Just a thought, quiet enough you almost miss it. Maybe this doesn't have to sound exactly like this for 22 more years. You don't do anything about it that night. You close the laptop, go to bed. But the thought doesn't fully leave. It waits, the way these things do, for the next time you're ready to actually listen. Year 10. The thought from 2 years ago finally turns into something. Starts small. Kitchen table, laptop open, the statement next to a calculator, neither of you really needs because you've both been running this in your heads for a decade. 20 years left. 284,000 still owed. You say it out loud for the first time. What if we paid every 2 weeks instead of once a month? Sounds like nothing. Sounds like a scheduling trick a banker mentions once and forgets. It's nothing. 26 half payments a year instead of 12 full ones. That's 13 full payments instead of 12. One extra payment a year you barely feel because it's broken small enough to hide inside a normal paycheck. You run it twice. The first time felt too good to be true. 5 years off. Just from that. No extra sacrifice, no second job, same money, different clock. Then you go further. $300 a month straight to principal, found by canceling 2 streaming services you forgot you still had, and skipping the phone upgrade you didn't need. $300. Doesn't feel like a sacrifice. Feels like nothing. It's nothing. Over the life of the loan, that's 8 years. 8 years off a 30-year sentence, for the price of a phone you didn't replace. You don't tell anyone, not the neighbor, not your parents. You just set it up. Bi-weekly draft, extra principal, both automated so you never have to decide twice and go back to your life. This is the part that doesn't make the highlight reel. No credits roll. Same job, same dinners, same car, same check engine light. Except now there's a number moving faster somewhere behind the scenes. Your spouse asks, a few weeks later, if it was the right call. You say you think so. You're not certain. Certainty's not really part of this. What you have is steadier than certain. You did the math. You trust the math. The math does the rest now without you watching it daily. The part that's easy to miss in year 10. You didn't need a windfall to change the ending. You needed one decision, repeated, that you never had to make twice. You close the laptop. 18 years left, not 20. Doesn't feel different yet. The 18 does though. Year 15. About 15 left after the bi-weekly payments and the extra principal kept doing their thing quietly. You're not behind anymore. The car got replaced. Nothing fancy, just new enough that the check engine light's not a personality trait anymore. The kids each have one activity instead of none. Then in March, a bill that has nothing to do with the mortgage. Your spouse needs a procedure. Insurance covers most, not all. $3,100, due in 60 days. 5 years ago, this went on a card at 22%, the same as the HVAC. This time it doesn't. Comes out of the fund you built without really naming it. Left over from the $300 you'd been throwing at principal, sitting in savings for exactly this kind of month. You pay it. Don't love it. But you don't lie awake over it either, and that part's new. You've drifted too far now to talk money with your old friends the way you used to. The bi-weekly thing, the extra principal, none of it comes up. Not pride. It just doesn't translate anymore. One night you pull up the statement out of habit, 191,000 left. You remember when it said 284. Here's the part nobody explains when you sign at 29. For most of the first decade, almost none of what you pay touches the actual debt. On a standard 30-year loan, something like 75% of an early payment is interest. You're not paying down a house in your 20s and 30s. You're mostly renting the bank's patience. The extra principal skipped past that. Went straight for the part that mattered. You close the laptop. 15 years left, not 20. Medical bills gone. Mortgage is smaller than it's ever been. Not triumphant, exactly. Closer to the relieved floor held. Year 19, 11 years off the original 30, between the bi-weekly payments, the extra principal, and one bonus check 3 years back, you threw at the balance instead of a vacation. Comes down to one number. $4,218. You could pay it off in 6 months on the regular schedule. You don't want to wait 6 months. So one Thursday, kids asleep, you log into the account you've logged into 1,000 times and do something you've never done. Pay it all. Whole balance. One transfer. The screen asks you to confirm. You confirm. No sound. No banner that means anything. Just a balance that says 0, then a page that says the loan's paid in full. You sit there for a minute. You expected something with more weight to it. Instead, there's a kitchen, a laptop, and a glass of water you forgot you poured an hour ago. You call your spouse over. They read it twice, the way you do with screens you don't quite believe. Nobody says anything big. Your spouse puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "That's it, then." You say, "Yeah, that's it." You don't go out, don't open anything. You make tea, actually funny later when you think about it. 11 years of extra payments, 19 years of statements, and it ends with 2 mugs of tea on a Thursday. The house looks the same the next morning. Same kitchen. Same dishwasher that needs a new seal. Same drop-off, same commute, same job. Nothing about the walls or the driveway or the mailbox shows that anything happened. But something did. You can't point to it yet. More like a sound that stopped. A hum you'd gotten so used to you forgot it was there, until it wasn't. You go to work on Friday like normal. Around 11, in a meeting about nothing, a thought shows up out of nowhere and just stays for the rest of the day. You don't have to ask permission for anything anymore. You don't act on it. Too new. You just notice it, the way you noticed 18 years left, the way you noticed 191. You let it sit. What's strange about the day it actually ends? Nothing about the house changes when the debt does. Walls don't know. Neighbors don't know unless you tell them. The only different thing is the math running under your life, and for the first time in 19 years, that math says 0. You go to bed in the room you've slept in for 2 decades. First night in 19 years. You don't run the numbers before you fall asleep. Six months out from 0, and you're holding the property tax bill, doing math you didn't think you'd still be doing. You figured the mortgage disappearing meant an extra $2,200 a month showing up. That's what the old statement said you'd been paying. Principal, interest, taxes, insurance, all bundled into a line that used to leave like clockwork. Didn't work out that way. Not exactly. Taxes are still due. $1,100 a year more than when you signed, because apparently nobody tells the county you'd appreciate it staying still. Insurance went up too. Not because anything happened to the house, just because everything costs more to insure now. And then the thing nobody puts in the math until it happens to you. The water heater. Picked month 4 to start making a sound it had never made. Called someone. $1,200 later, it stopped. One evening, you actually added up properly, instead of guessing. Taxes, insurance, a maintenance fund you set up almost as an afterthought because someone online said to set aside 1% of the home's value a year for the stuff that breaks. Comes to about $800 a month, still going out, mortgage or no mortgage. So the real number isn't $2,200, it's closer to $14. You stare at the gap for a second, what you imagined, minus what's actually there. And you feel almost disappointed before catching yourself. $1,400 a month is still $1,400 that used to belong to a bank. That's nothing. But it's a good lesson. The kind that costs you a little of the excitement to learn. The house was never going to be free. Just cheaper. The difference is exactly the size of a property tax bill that would have wrecked your week if you hadn't seen it coming. You moved the $1,400 somewhere on purpose this time. Not checking where money goes to, vanish into nothing you can name later, somewhere with a name on it. A brokerage account you opened years ago and barely touched. Nothing dramatic. Just a transfer, same as the bi-weekly mortgage thing years back. Automatic, out of sight. Out of the part of your brain that talks you out of things. Here's the thing about freedom at this stage. It doesn't show up all at once and never at full price. It shows up discounted. After taxes, after insurance, after the water heater you didn't see coming. What's left is still real. Just smaller than the number you pictured the night you paid it off. You close the spreadsheet. $1,400, moving on its own now, towards something you haven't fully named yet. You'll name it soon enough. 2 years out from zero. The 1,400's been sitting in that account, growing without much attention, the way things do once you stop checking every week. Then your company reorganizes. Nothing dramatic, no layoffs, just a new role posted internally. Smaller team, work that actually matters to you. The kind you used to mention late at night and drop because it wasn't practical. Pays $8,000 less a year. 8,000 used to be a number you couldn't get near. 2 years ago, it ended the conversation before it started. You run it in your head, standing in the hallway, and the answer comes back the same. No, can't. This time you go home and actually run it on paper, because for the first time in your adult life, the math isn't a wall. It's a question. The mortgage isn't sitting on top of everything anymore, eating 40-some% before groceries. The 1,400 is still moving into the account on its own. You could absorb $8,000 a year and barely feel it land. You take the job. Nobody throws a party. No announcement that means anything outside your own kitchen. You just show up Monday in a different department, doing work that doesn't feel like punching a clock. And the strange thing is how ordinary it feels almost immediately. Like you'd been holding your breath for years without noticing, and now you're just breathing. Your spouse starts something too, around the same time. Nothing big, a few clients on the side, work that needed 18 months to go anywhere, work that would have been impossible 3 years ago, because one slow quarter back then meant choosing between groceries and the mortgage. Now a slow quarter's just a slow quarter. You didn't get richer this year. Combined income actually went down. But the decisions got bigger because the floor under you stopped moving. One night you pull up the account, out of curiosity now instead of anxiety. Same shift that happened with the mortgage statement years ago. $1,400 a month, 2 years in, just over $36,000. You didn't do anything clever. You just didn't stop. Looking back at year 2 after, money didn't change what you wanted. It changed what you were allowed to choose. You'd wanted the smaller job for years. The mortgage was the only thing standing between you and saying yes. It's not standing there anymore. You go to bed that night thinking about something you haven't thought about in a while. Not the math, not the balance, not the bills, just tomorrow. What you're actually going to do with it. You're 51 now. House paid off over a decade ago. The number in the brokerage account doesn't feel like one you built so much as one that built itself while you were busy doing other things. $412,000. You know the figure without checking, the way you used to know the mortgage balance without checking, except looking at it now doesn't come with a question attached, it's just there. You don't think about the house payment anymore. Haven't in years. Strange actually how completely a thing can vanish from your life once it's gone. Like a sound you lived with for 2 decades stops being a sound and just becomes the absence of one. Your kid's in college now. The one whose cleats you used to budget around back in year 3. You paid for most of it without touching the brokerage account, just from what $1,400 a month, never spent, turns into after enough years. Your spouse's side work turned into something real a while back. Not a fortune. Just steady. The kind of steady that doesn't ask anyone's mortgage for permission anymore. Sometimes you drive past the old neighborhood, the year 3 one, the starter house with the check engine light that never really got fixed, just tolerated. You don't feel nostalgic exactly. More specific than that. You remember what it cost to do that math every Sunday night, and you remember not knowing yet that it would end. You think about the version of you at that kitchen table back then, doing the math in your head, standing in the cereal aisle, sure this was just what the next 27 years would sound like. He wasn't wrong about the 27 years, he was wrong about the sound. Looking back, the thing that actually got you here wasn't a raise. Wasn't luck either. Your income never exploded along the way. What happened is smaller than that, harder to put on a slide. You earned what you earned, spent less than that, and the gap between the two numbers kept surviving, Year after year, raise or no raise, HVAC or no HVAC, until the gap got bigger than the debt. That's the whole mechanism, never more complicated than that. Right now, in a house just like the one you used to live in, someone's lying awake at 2:47 in the morning, listening to a water heater click through the wall. They're doing the math. Mortgage, car, the orthodontist bill split into 4. From the street, their house looks exactly like the one 11 doors down. The one where the mortgage ended years ago. Same driveway, same mailbox, same square footage. Nobody walking past either house could tell you which is which. The difference was never the house. It was in the years hidden under it. The ones spent doing math at a kitchen table, the ones nobody saw, the ones that started with a single payment small enough to look like nothing at all. It always starts there.